Life doesn't give us meaning. We give meaning to life. Does that make sense to everybody? You want to wake up? You want to have the life you've always dreamed? That's up to you. One of the definitions of meaning is to intend to. I mean to go home. We used to say that. That's probably old. You want your life to be an expression of the divine? Choose to make it mean something. I'm back. Me and Jimmy Kimmel. For some of you, don't get nervous. That's as political as I get. So, before I start, I have to. Is that loud? Is that good? Before I start, I have to share with you my week, because creating this talk was really miserable. I have to tell you. I tried and tried and tried, and no matter what I did, I would look at a blank page and nothing would come until yesterday evening. And for those of you who know me, you know it takes me 2 whole weeks to prepare for these things. And I was talking to God, and he and I were having a big old fight. I couldn't figure out why. And then it dawned on me, the reason I was having trouble is because I was trying to tell you what your purpose in life was. I was trying to tell you what your meaning in life should be, your Dharma, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, that's not my job. My job wasn't to tell you what meaning and what purpose is for your life. My job is to share the journey on self-discovery, how you can discover it yourself. And the minute I had that realization, wait, I'm not to tell you anything, I'm to share with you how I came about meaning myself, things started to flow. So if I keep going back today to look at this, it's because it wasn't until last night that it came to me. So the talk today is on Dharma. Stay calm, I know that excites everybody, Dharma. The word Dharma comes from the Sanskrit root dhr, which means to maintain or to uphold or to keep in place. Originally, the word meant law, the same way we use the word law today, but then it was the law, the cosmic law, karma, or it was the law of nature. The word Dharma evolved into the meaning duty, doing one's duty. And as a matter of fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible of the Hindus, really, it says it is better to do one's own Dharma poorly than someone else's Dharma well. What it really said in that line, though, because we translate it for Dharma, but it said it is better to follow one's own inner law than someone else's outer law. In other words, it's better to be authentic to yourself than allow society or anybody else to tell you how to be authentic. So it came to that. But even that evolved, and it became one's calling. We hear that a lot. And there's been dozens of books written on it, haven't there? Soul Calling. Most of them, I don't think, are worth reading. I know that sounds judgmental. The best definition of Dharma I ever heard came from the Baptist. He is not a Baptist. The Buddhist scholar. Not that there's anything wrong with Baptists. Not saying that. It came from the Buddhist scholar, Rupert Gethin. And what Rupert said was that Dharma is the basis of things. I really like that. In other words, your Dharma is your foundation upon which you build your life. That's a very different sense of the word, isn't it? So each of us should ask that question, what is the foundation upon which we build our lives? Because if your foundation is something other than God or Spirit, you're going to be disappointed. Why? Because they don't last. Right? If you're a singer, and that's your foundation of your life, and then you lose your voice, what do? What happens then? Or if your foundation is your job and your work, and it's time to retire, what do you do then? If your foundation is taking care of your children and your children grow up and leave the house, what do you do then? it doesn't last, does it? Recently I heard, or read, I can't remember, it said, there are two great moments in our life. The moment when we're born, and the moment we figure out why we were born. That actually didn't sit that well with me. And the reason for that is because, to me, it implies that purpose is more important than meaning. Does that make sense to anybody else? You know, it's got that shading on it. And it's really not our purpose we're looking for, it's meaning in life. In fact, Plato said humans are beings looking for meaning. It's the meaning in life that we should want to know. And the only one that can figure that out is us, the meaning. Yeah? The challenge that we have these days is that most of us were raised thinking that heaven is somewhere else, right? That if we behave ourselves, if we live a good life, a righteous life, we're going to go to our reward that's over here. The problem with that is it postpones our looking for meaning. It stops us from doing the examined life, doesn't it? Because if I just live a good life, and I don't know about you, can you define what a good life means exactly? Everybody thinks, I lived a good life, I'm going to heaven. I don't believe in hell, so there must be some other choice to be made. But it postpones meaning. Meaning, and I get in trouble for this a lot, and those of you who have come to my classes know, I say meaning is self-derived. And that makes some people unhappy. I have had someone, I said that in a class one time, she said to me, angrily, are you telling me my best friend of 40 years who just died of cancer, her life means whatever I want it to mean? And I said, yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. She got up and left. Why? Because I was telling her that a God sitting in a chair wasn't giving meaning to her friend's life. How many of us have heard or said, myself included, oh, that must mean God wants me to fill in the blank. Can we relate to that? It means whatever you want it to mean. Because there is no little old man or woman in a chair telling you what your life is supposed to be like. In order to think like that, we have to say that God is other than we are. But God is not other than we are. God is inside us. It's part of us. Can I tell you a story? There was a man, let's say his name was Charles. Charles lived in a small village in the mountains. And he was a good man, and he did a lot of work. He worked his fields, he took care of people, but eventually it wasn't enough. And he became discontent with his life. He became so discontent with his life, he needed to know the meaning of his life, why it was there, that he decided to stop what he was doing and go on a walkabout. Does everybody know the term walkabout? He put on a backpack, filled it, and went out and started his walking. And he hiked over mountains, crossed fields, streams, and eventually, weeks later, he came upon an old man sitting under the tree. It wasn't Buddha, just another nice old man. And the old man looked at him, and he could tell Charles was upset. And he said, "What's wrong?" And Charles said, "I'm looking for meaning in life, and I can't find it." And the old man just smiled. That didn't sit right with Charles. "Why are you smiling?" And the old man said, "Because meaning is something I cannot give you. It's something you must discover for yourself. It is a blank canvas upon which you paint." And he handed Charles a paintbrush and a small canvas. Charles thanked him, put it in his backpack, and then continued his journey. And for weeks and months he walked and walked and walked, and eventually he came to a dark forest. And as he entered the forest, it started getting darker and darker and darker. And he started to see a form come to him, and Charles started to shake. And he finally confronted the form. He said, "Who or what are you?" And the form said, "I am your fear." And Charles said, "I don't know what to do with this. How do I handle this fear?" And the form said, "You just keep walking. Just walk." So Charles did just that. He kept on walking through the forest. And eventually he came to the edge of the forest, and as he stepped out of the forest, he stepped onto a plateau. And there in front of him was a vast valley, green and crystal clear. And he sat down to contemplate it. And as he sat down, everything he was afraid of, all the things that worried him, began to settle to the bottom. And for the first time in his life, he experienced existence being. And he started to paint. And it painted as if he wasn't the painter. It just painted itself. And the more he painted, the closer to the end of the painting he got, the more he realized, aha, I know what I want to do now. He packed up his stuff and went home. And when he got home, he decided he was going to help other people find their meaning. He couldn't give it to them, but he could help them find it. And he spent the rest of his life sharing that journey. That's Charles's journey. What stops us from discovering our own journey? And what are the ways we can journey? There are 3 ways to that journey that I know of. The first way, some people, and you know them, they're just born blessed. They know what they were made to do from the get-go. Have you met those? My teacher was like that. He knew at age 9 years old that he was to be a servant of God, and he wanted to share the word, and he was to go out. He knew it from the get-go. I have a friend in college whose father was a dentist. He went to college to be a dentist. He went to dental school to be a dentist. He got out. He started a dental practice. He married a dentist. They had dentist children. I mean, right? It's like a legacy. That was not me, by the way. The other way is what Joseph Campbell says. He says, to find meaning, follow your bliss. Have y'all heard that one? I have a problem with that. You know why? Because my bliss is found at the bottom of a half-gallon jug of ice cream. That's my bliss. Some people's bliss is the bottom of a bottle, isn't it? Or they find their bliss in work, or in their children, or in the home. But again, all those things end. I'm not really sure that's what Joseph meant. I think what he meant was you turn inward, and the one thing the soul hungers for is to rest in the awareness of itself. And in resting in the awareness of itself, the soul, that which we are, finds joy and bliss. Right? It's not in the doing, it's in the being. And then once you anchor in that being, what you're supposed to do presents itself. You don't know where it's going, you don't know where the journey is taking you, but now your awareness of that bliss, and with that bliss comes meaning, and the meaning gives you direction. Does that make sense to everybody? So what stops us? And the third way, which I almost forgot to tell you, is what I try to emphasize all the time, and that is prayer, contemplation, and meditation. It's the airplane route to meaning. Immediately turn inward, get quiet enough, experience what you are at the core, boom, that's it. What's left to do then? Right? So what stops us from doing that? What stops us from walking that journey? Well, most of us were raised for years being told by society, by others, that we are not enough. That what it has to offer is what we should want. In other words, we are lacking in some way. It's a lie. Everything we need, everything we want, everything we are is within us. There's nothing we have to do to get God's love. There's a story of a student who went to his teacher, and he said to his teacher, "Please, will you give me God's and your grace?" And the teacher said, "God's grace you have always had. My grace I freely give you. It is only your own grace that you lack." Most of us have come to believe that we're not enough. I am not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I'm not. That's a lie. We have to retrain ourselves to believe everything we need is within us. Because that's really what poverty consciousness is, isn't it? Poverty consciousness isn't how much money you have or don't have. Poverty consciousness is something within you that feels like it's not enough, and therefore you live in lack. And when you live in lack, what does life reflect back to you? Right? And because that's what you go looking for. You go looking for life to validate your feelings of inadequacy, of lack, of not having enough. Do you know the most powerful affirmation that exists? The most powerful affirmation that can change our lives is, I am. Fill in the blank. So when you say, I am not enough, whether you're saying it out loud or it's a subconscious drive, you are affirming to the life, to God, to the world, that you lack. So if you want to rewrite your brain and its chemistry and the neural pathways, begin to use the opposite affirmation. I am enough. I am whole. I am complete. I was talking to Newsom, fighting with him, really. Not physically, just intellectually. You know, he thinks faster than the speed of light, so I have to struggle to keep up sometimes. And I was telling him, you know, Newsom, I'm in the process of writing this book, and lately I've had this realization that has crept up on me. No bells, no whistles, no big lights, you know, didn't fall off a horse and see the light. And that is this subtle realization that it's all one thing. That God breathes out and I breathe in. That I breathe out and you breathe in. That you breathe out and God breathes in. The one thing we have to remember is that there can be no us without God. But there can be no God without us. It's all one thing. And I was telling him, I cannot seem to write that on the page. And he said, Mike, write that. So I went home and I looked down at a blank page screen. And I realized suddenly, oh, I need to give meaning to that page. Life doesn't give us meaning. We give meaning to life. Does that make sense to everybody? You want to wake up? You want to have the life you've always dreamed? That's up to you. One of the definitions of meaning is to intend to. I mean to go home. We used to say that. That's probably old. You want your life to be an expression of the divine? Choose to make it mean something. Most of us are doing it backwards, aren't we? We're doing something in order to find meaning, in order to experience being. And that's bass-ackwards, isn't it? We want to experience being that gives us meaning and directs our doing. The reverse of it. So in order to start that, the most powerful affirmation you can use is, I am that I am. I am existence being, whole, complete, immortal. And once you have that realization, guess what the world reflects? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying that the journey is worth the travel. It's worth the trip. It's worth the experience. So let's end today with an affirmation. Take up your meditation postures. Close your eyes and raise your gaze. Affirm aloud after me. I am whole. I am complete. I am immortal. I am spirit expressing as. I am that I am. I bow to the Christ within each of you. Namaste.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.